Philadelphia Tribune. Hi, Andre. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How's Philly?
Outstanding. Listen, you do not shy away from playing the heavy characters. I mean, I still want a comedy for you, but you do a great job engulfing these characters. And one thing I particularly want to ask you, when he's in solitary confinement, like I know with you as an actor, you give breaks, but just the idea of being so like the walls, no daylight, no one to talk to. What did you prepare? Because I think even for like a little bit, even though we tell ourselves, I'm getting out of here, I'm not in here, it's only temporary, the mind plays terrible tricks on you when you are in a small space like that. So how did you get yourself mentally prepared and to kind of say, okay, it's going to be okay. I need to get through it. So what did you do to make sure that your mental state was good as you're portraying this angst and your heart is breaking because it's really like I think of it being like the worst thing you can do, one of the worst things you can do to a person.
Yeah, that was a real challenge, that scene. And, Huey writes about that scene in particular, about that moment in his life, and he writes in very, very graphic detail what his experience was like. And so starting out by reading that and really studying that was really helpful to me. And then in terms of just preparing myself to do it, you're right. You can tell your mind whatever this is pretend. We're gonna be out of this soon. It's only gonna be 4 more hours or whatever. But your body doesn't know that you're pretending. And so as an actor, you really have to put your body in that space. And oftentimes, even after the scene is over, you still carry like the residue of that emotion in your body. So I think myself and a lot of other actors have to have some sort of process to allow ourselves to release that residual tension. But it's a challenge for sure.
He was really like I don't want to say it, I don't want to because he's human and as humans we don't want to kind of like canonize people, but he was very like he not only say fearless, but he believed strongly in the things he believed in, and I believe like had faith. Because in order for you to be able to take on the police, knowing that they really had all the power, and that you can be dead at any drop of a moment, you have to live on faith. So, what did you take away from him, the man, not him, the icon, but him, the human, who really there was something in him that said, you know what? I may not see the fruition of what I'm doing, but I know I'm on the right side of history.
Yeah, I would say that, his courage, is one thing that I really was inspired by and admired in him, and also his intellect. He was so intelligent and often rode around in the car with the law book, which he would use whenever he would encounter police. He knew the law so well that he could, if cops were doing something that they weren't allowed to do, he would refer to the particular statute or penal code, whatever it is, and say, well, actually, according to this, you're not allowed to do this. You're out of line. And so I think that his courage, which I believe was undergirded by that fierce intelligence, um, is something that really I found super inspiring.
Absolutely. I love this for you. I do want you to do a comedy because you
Me
deserve a little
too.
bit of fun, right? But it's also a testament to your talent as an actor. Congratulations. I think you did an outstanding job.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Tia Woods with the Philadelphia Tribune. My apologies.
Oh, good.
How are you,
I'm
Tiffany?
doing well. How are you?
Excellent. Talk to me a little bit because you're a little young. I was barely a baby. I know it doesn't look it. um, when this was happening, like what did you use as your resource to kind of get yourself in the frame of mind to understand what they were dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly just read every book I could get my hands on about the Panthers, specifically stuff that was more focused on telling Huey's story because that's where I could really find Gwen. She's a very private person, so it's hard to find anything about her. So just watching every documentary I could find, reading every book I could find, talking to our researchers, looking for pictures. It was just like, just trying to bombard myself with information and letting it sink in.
And also talk a little bit about how they understood knowing the law, even though it wasn't created for them, but knowing the law was like their way of also pushing back. It wasn't just like, hey, we're going to get these guns and show up and do stuff. They understood that this is the way to communicate, in this case with white people, because they were, and still to this day, very much about law and order.
Yeah, I mean, they used the laws that were supposed to be used against them for their benefit, right? And then the second they use those laws to be like, I can carry this gun, all of a sudden they want to change the guns and do, gun reform, or change the laws and do gun reform. So, yeah, they were really, really intelligent people, you know what I mean? And they were underestimated because of that, because people looked at them and thought these were just young black guys from Oakland. What do they really know? No, they knew plenty, and they knew how to use the system to their advantage.
And what have you learned about Gwen in this process that you're like, because I think one of the things that we sometimes forget is they were all really young. They weren't like, I know sometimes, because sometimes actors that are a little bit older play them, but they were like 40 or 50 years old, pretty much like, with the civil rights movement, a lot of the people, yes, there were a lot of young people, but the figureheads were a lot older. Whereas in this case, it's really like, at the beginning of adulthood.
Yeah, I mean, Gwen had 2 kids by the time she was 19 and like started working with the party. Like she came to the party really young. And just the amount of responsibility. I mean, when you think about it, having kids, dating the founder of the Black Panther Party, working for the Panthers, on the run for your life, like all the things that she was taking in, the amount of maturity that she had to, get pretty quickly is insane, right? But I guess motherhood will do that to you. Having to like fend for yourself will do that for you. And so I just have so much respect for her and what she was able to do at such a young age.
Absolutely. Lovely meeting you, and best of luck with the project.
Thank you.
Hi, Katya Woods with the Philadelphia Tribune. How are you guys?
Hi, Katya.
Good. How you doing?
Excellent, excellent. So talk to me a little bit about, because most of what we know about the Black Panthers is told from a very Black point of view. So what did you learn in terms of like, because you two guys are 180 degrees. Like you can tell, like.
Oh, you think so? That's so weird.
The party. It was just, they were like, what in the world? We didn't come here to party. We're fighting for our lives. So talk a little bit about what that was like when you learned that, these 2 guys that really didn't have to get involved in this. They were doing A-OK over there, learning how they saw something and were like, you know what, there's something here that, we need to get involved with.
Yes. You can start because you kick it off for me.
Well, I think in Bert Schneider's case, that his fascination with the Panthers and with Huey may have come out of some kind of need to reinvent himself as a person and as a producer, and his sort of image in Hollywood and in the world. And I think he really wanted to be taken seriously, and he'd produced the Monkees television show, and he'd made millions of dollars off that. But I think he felt like a little bit embarrassed that the world was changing, and that there was this youth culture, counterculture happening, and that he was kind of not like with it, and not like hip and kind of with the scene. And so initially, this was a kind of like a new outfit for him to put on that kind of, made people take him seriously. But I think it then really evolved and became a kind of like intense obsession and kind of love for Huey himself as a man that totally consumed him. And he really eventually, I think, was just ready to sacrifice anything for him. And he talked about him in interviews, just saying that he was the smartest man he'd ever met. And he, like, the more that he understood how Huey had sort of been an autodidact in prison and had taught himself to read and had read Latin and all those. I mean, he just couldn't believe it. And he just saw him as he sort of idolized him like a god. And it really was like all consuming for Bert.
What about you, PJ?
I mean, it's really interesting. I feel like I was more of like an audience watching this for the first time that didn't know a lot about the Black Panthers, that didn't know a lot about Huey P. Newton. And you have to remember, lot of my sales is driven by this man. And since at first I'm there because he wants to help his friend Huey P. Newton, and I'm like a diehard guy, and we grew, you know, gotta remember, we were friends since we were kids. So like my whole life is like showing up to protect him or be there for him. But the more that I'm exposed to Huey and his struggles, the civil rights movement, I'm changing my views and realizing like he's lost friends, they've lost people. This is a big deal, and I have a chance to save this man and to hopefully so that he can continue to go on to make change. And I just think that we're all presented as, you know, humans, no matter, you know, whatever life we're living. There's gonna be a time where like we have to make a choice, and whether we're gonna do the right thing or not do the right thing, we're gonna keep our mouth shut. Because my character puts a lot on the line. He can lose his wife and his kids. He's going to lose his company. But really, you know, when he's going to get him across the border, he can lose his life. And that's what made me really excited to play this part and share that part of the story, that regular people can do amazing things and humans can do the right things and really help make change, even though they're not the focal point of it. But there are people along that if we all do the right thing, hopefully great things can happen.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
Hi, Katya Woods with the Philadelphia Tribune.
Hi,
Sorry. Hi.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Let's talk a little bit about this time period, which if you really like close your eyes a little bit it's got so many of the similarities of what is going on now. So how eerie is that? Because we really don't learn from history. You know, we really are bad students when you look upon it, you know, just
It's
same deal, different outfit. So
Yeah.
let's start with you, Janine.
Yeah, I was going to say it's really scary. I think Huey Newton and the Panthers started because they were sick and tired and heartbroken by the police brutality. There was too much blood in the streets. They decided they needed to do something. In this case, they used the Constitution, they used the Second Amendment to, you know, carry arms and to police the police. You know, when black people pick up guns and, you know, take over the state capitol, guess what happens? The Republicans believe in gun control. And so laws were changed because of that action. And so you see that same parallel happen. You know, I started on this. He's been on it for 25 years. I started on it in 2018. You know, we took this project through 2020. We saw what was happening. We saw what, you know, continued to happen. And so those parallels did not go lost to us. That's why we made that correlation by the end of the piece, because history does repeat itself unless we continue to get people like Huey, revolutionaries and kids and college kids and, you know, students of history to make a difference.
Absolutely. Jim, talk about that. Because I'm like, especially living in the Philadelphia area, sometimes I'm like, what Constitution did you read? What Declaration of Independence? We got it in the Capitol away from a lot of the people that are misquoting it. Mm-hmm. And then we have a lovely copy here in Independence Hall and in the Museum of American Revolution. And I'm like, I need you to point to me what copy you're reading, because it's not the one that was shown here on July 6, 1776, that was presented to the public.
Right.
How odd is that we are still like not quite understanding that, you know, you can't just cut and paste. The words are there for a reason, and how mismanaged even back then it was, you know, oh, it's good if I say it, but It's not good if you say it, kind of thing.
That was, I mean, initially one of the craziest thing to me is just when you're talking about the gun control thing, like that the modern gun control movement was started on the right by Republicans. That quote that Ronald Reagan gives when the Panthers come to the state capitol is verbatim. Ronald Reagan said, "I see no reason why people today need a gun," you know, on and on, just like we said it in the script. And so, like Janine said, all of a sudden black men are carrying guns and gun control became very important to the GOP, and they passed the biggest piece of, you know, gun control legislation in California history, the Mulford Act, to stop open carry. Yeah, it's heartbreaking and it's discouraging. There are some things that are signs of change, but like, you know, you're struck. I think a lot of people are struck by Huey, picked up a gun, in 1967 or 4 and went out on the street, a black man in the 60s, and policed the police, an incredible act of bravery and heroism. And as we were seeing in the news every week while we were making the show, it seemed like this shit's still going on.
Yeah.
And so there's hope in it, you know, and I think there's a lot of hope in Huey. And there's frustration. You know, there's still, unfortunately, a lot to fight for. Now, my wife comes from Philadelphia. Well, shout out to Bernie and Lois Friel. She won't take me to Independence Hall to read that document, but I need to. I need to do it. But yeah, everybody.
I mean, it's listen, and if you come around this time of year, you can get in for free. So
really?
Oh, wow.
There's no excuses. So
Okay.
You know
I'm
what?
just saying.
Well, I was going to add, we really wanted people to not just remember the Panthers and guns, because that image has been lionized in people's minds. We wanted people to also know that Huey was wanted by the FBI, a target, because of the social programs. He believed that kids could not retain information unless they were fed. And it's like a basic thing that you were saying, how history repeats itself, that we're still struggling with, you know, unhoused communities. People actually cannot function unless they eat. And so that's so important. But that serving pancakes to kids is what made him enemy number one, because the government saw change happening. What happens if Huey makes all these, you know, medical clinics? Change will continue to occur. And so I think, if anything, people need to move away from the notion of just Huey sitting in that chair, you know, holding the gun. They need to look at the whole legacy of the Panthers to understand what they were fighting for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this, and best of luck with the project.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.